Churches says hi, ladies.
Can you hear it?
No, she posted.
Oh. I like spending my lunchtime with you.
Almost ready?
We're still trying
Are
to figure
we
out.
live?
Yeah, we're
We are
live, but
live.
we're trying to figure out if the.
We're testing sound right now.
We're on.
Sound check.
It's just a really big lag, so
Where's this?
that's super. It's on top.
Okay, why is it all the way up?
Oh, we got lots of people coming in. Say some stuff.
Hey. Am I on there?
Not yet.
Oh, because it lags. It definitely lags.
Liv says we hear you. I think we're good.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, good. All right, don't worry about it.
All right, cool.
I'll take that.
So she can watch her comments, yeah.
Thank you.
Don't know what I
Let's
did
get
with
this
that.
going. Oh, this isn't plugged in.
There we are.
Every day we learn this technology a little more. Day by day.
That way you know
We're
we're real.
slow learners.
We're
That's
real.
right.
But look at this backdrop.
I know
Like,
now.
God.
Actually, we thought if we put me in a stationary spot,
You might hear us.
there would be a better chance of me actually getting my voice projected so that you guys could hear me.
Can
So-
you guys hear us okay? Can you hear her? Okay. They say.
Lib says we hear you.
Yes, it's not showing up over here.
That's okay.
All live notifications.
Barb Anthony says hi, everyone. We miss you.
Hi,
Aw, we miss
Barb.
you, Barb. Okay.
Hearts.
What's that?
We've got
Hearts.
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 Ballooning.
So that means they can hear? Does that mean they can hear?
We're just getting ready to get started.
Yes. Liv says yes.
All right, let's
Yay.
get going. Okay, so sorry we have all this. We're still trying to understand technology. This is very new to us. And when we try and watch ourselves, there's this big lag. So we have a hard time testing to know whether or not what we're doing is actually working. So what I was going to do today is a couple things. I thought it would be fun to have a kit of the week. And last week, the kit was absolutely constant. We sold out of all of the Focus fabric on those kits. I think we sold about 25 kits, which was fabulous. So this time I thought I would pick one that is still very springy. So our new kit for this week, yeah, you don't have to pan with me. I'll step off the screen and come right back. It's this. Can you guys see it?
And what is it called?
It's called My Garden.
It's so cute.
I think we needed something really springtime, really fresh. And I'm going to use a tool today to sew some angles, and it uses all of these are made, this entire quilt is made with squares and rectangles that clip corners, and the tool I'm going to show you today is really good to use with this. I also wanted to just show you some of the fabric. It's very, very sweet. So there's purples, paisleys, little kites. There's purple with a flower on it, pink kites, very springtime. And then there's a lot of other. Here are the other ones, couple of pinks, couple of greens, and some really pretty yellows.
And this is it for market.
And
This
oranges.
is a better picture.
So that's the kit. This quilt actually is 64 by 84 inches. And the whole kit with the background and everything is about $150. So it's called My Garden. All right, so
Here's the
that's the
picture from
kit of this week. Oh, and here it is. Can you see that? That is the frog panel sitting in front of this quilt. So it's
Same
very
line.
springtime.
Summer picnic.
Yes, summer picnic. Okay? So we do have a few, someone is out front. We do have a few panels left as well of the frog. It's a 2-yard panel that we showed last week, so not very many, but a few. Okay, so that's the kit of the week, and I won't do that every day because we would run out of things to show you, but I did think that was super pretty. So today, my topic is going to be binding. In fact, we're going to use this topic all week, so we're going to kind of break it into different segments and just do a few tasks associated with binding each day. And at the end, you'll be very good binders because you should all be finishing a lot of quilt tops at home. We hope that you are. Okay, so the first thing is I came up with this very, very fancy quilt. I dropped something. Yep, a very fancy quilt. Can you see it? It's so fancy, it's the same on the front as on the back. But the very, very first thing that we need to do is square up our quilt. So when your quilt comes back from the quilter, a lot of times your edges aren't exactly square. Can you guys see that? How it kind of bows out a little bit? The corners aren't quite square. It's kind of hanging down this way, going this way. So I want to be able to show you how we're going to square up our quilt. So you're going to have to bring the camera and point it down. So we're going to pretend this is a big quilt, and here's my cutting mat and my ruler. We're going to pretend like everything is bigger, but it's really little because otherwise you'd be watching me a long, long time. But the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start in one corner. So I just want to start in a corner, and then I'm going to I'm going to let the lines of my mat help me get myself square. So you can see that I've got this bowing here, and I'm kind of extending out there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do the law of averages. And oftentimes you have your border on your quilt that can help you. You can lay a line of your ruler on top of that inner line of your border to help keep yourself square. And then I'm going to so I've laid this out as square as I can get it. It is definitely a little wonky here. But I'm just going to make myself pick a 90 degree, and then I'm going to stay straight. So then I'm going to cut. And then when I have a bigger quilt, I'm going to bring the whole thing towards me. So imagine it's a big quilt. I just bring it all towards me. And then I'm going to stay on this line that I just formed and see how it's cutting a little bit off here. And then I'm going to cut there. Okay? So when I get to the corner, I'm going to lift my whole quilt up. Imagine again it's big. I'm going to lift it up and I'm going to turn it. And now what I care is that I get a good 90 degrees here. A lot of times our corners get pulled out a little bit when they come back from the quilter. If things aren't perfectly square, we want to get them back to square before we start putting our binding on. So then I would lay my line of my ruler. So here's my ruler line, and I'm going to put it along the bottom edge of my quilt, and I'm going to get myself re-squared up. This is a little bit exaggerated because this was really wonky. Sometimes your quilt's really wonky. We hope it's not. But then I would clean, and then I would lift up my quilt, pull it towards me. I would follow along the same line that I've already established and keep cutting. I'm going to do the same thing with this side. I'm going to care about this bottom corner. Again, we have a lot of raw edges that are it's wonky. I'm going to line a line of my ruler up to get a good 90 degrees. Trim. One more trim. And then my final side, I want to be 90 degrees in both corners. So I want to be 90 degrees when I start down here, and I want to end up at 90 degrees when I get to the other end. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to pull myself up. And then my goal is to also end up at a nice 90 degrees. See how that finishes? Okay. So now we have a squared up quilt, and it's ready to have its binding put on it. Some people like to take this to a serger at this point and do a 4-thread overlock just to clean off all those edges and give them a nice straight line. For today, we're not going to do that, but that is an option for you guys who have a serger. You can just clean it up at this point. The next thing we need to do is get our binding strips ready, and that's where we bring in Miss Joyce. I feel very serious today.
I know, she's so serious because this is a lot of fun, and she has such a beautiful quilt.
I know, it's so pretty. And then this is our binding that we picked to go with it.
Can they see that?
It's
Yep.
pretty clashy, but we're just
Not so
using
bad.
stuff. No, not so bad.
Not so bad. So I'm just going to cut the strips for Kathy. Normally she would just, zip, zip, zip with her rotary. But for those of you who have an AccuQuilt cutter and their number one selling die, which is the 2.5-inch strip cutter, you can take your fabric. I have about 3/4 of a yard, which if you do 6 layers at a time through one time through, that's enough binding for a queen size quilt. Super easy. Your strips are perfect. So if I just pulled it off of the bolt, some yardage here with the fold of the fabric right at the top, there's a line. Can you see that? There's a line right here. I'm just going to put the fold on that line right up at the top. And just make sure that I have my blades covered. So I'm just going to lay that and do my famous 6 layers of fabric
How
at
many,
a time.
Joyce?
How many layers of fabric?
6!
6! Oh, see, even Brett knows. All right, Mr. Brett. Okay, so we are just going to go over. Boy, I'm impressed, Brett. You're going to get into this quilting thing. All right, so, all right, we want to make sure that the fold is below that line so it cuts, because we want to make sure that there's a blade underneath there. I'm going to put the mat right on top of that, and then I'm going to send it through my cutter just like this. And then again, since this is one of their longer dies, if I have other things to do, I could just be off, ironing, getting my next stuff ready, but when it pops out, it's going to be all ready. And then Kathy, you're going to sew on the binding next, is that right?
First, we have to make our binding.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay,
First we
okay,
make-
so are you going to show them how to, do you want me to show them one of the?
Yes, so I
corners?
thought what we would do with the binding strips is I normally start with 2 binding strips that are squared off edges, so I'll do
You should show
those
them that,
first.
Yes.
Whoops.
Oops. We would have a little string cut there.
Here. I'll take this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
What?
Okay.
Look at this mess now.
Is this 2 1/4 or 2 in? This is skinny.
Is that 2? Oh, well, you can still do it, I think.
Oh no! Let's see. What are we?
Is it? What are we? We are
You
2?
did.
Oh, we did
No,
the 2.
we did 1 1/2.
Oh,
This is
2.
skinny.
Does
Oh no,
this
2.
is
This is 2.
2.
We can't do math either. Okay, 2 inches. I'll do 2 inch. This is a little quilt. Normally, I cut 2.5-inch strips because
That looks so big on this little quilt.
It is okay. So on this little quilt, we're going to use a 1-inch strip, but normally I would use a 2.5-inch strip. And then right now, these 2 guys need to be joined together, and they need to be mitered. When we are joining together our binding strips, we want to always make sure that we do a miter because we want to spread the thickness of that seam across the space. I like to use this tool, which I was starting to get out, and I didn't get it all the way out. It is, it's an angler tool. And
It's
what's-
the clearly perfect angle.
It's a clearly perfect angle. So this is, it's like playing with
color form.
color forms, exactly. It's like playing with color forms. So you do need to cut out the center where your feed dogs are, which I have not done yet. So I'm going to just do that really quickly on my mat. I'm going to cut out an area in here.
Don't do this at home with your good rotary cutter.
Oh, Joyce, I always get in trouble. I have scissors too. There we go. Okay, whoops. Okay, so we need to cut that area out because we need to be able to put this over our bead dogs. Let me raise my foot. So this is the product that we're using. It's a clearly angle. I'll show you that in a second. So see how I've created a space that's big enough to totally clear, this rectangle needs to be totally clear of your feed dogs. Let me take my foot off so you can really see that. So here's the hole that I just cut, right there. Then what happens is this has a nice, we need to make sure that we are dead on, we need this straight line coming out here to be dead on to our needle. So if you just kind of put your needle down, put a ruler up to it, and then we just want to make, wow, I laid that down really nicely. So see how it's just coming straight off, and it's going to lead right up to my needle. And then this has,
Professional.
I'm professional, I knew just what I was doing. It does have a little bit of just a slight stick to it, so it does not move around. You don't have to tape it like the old ones. You had to actually tape them on your machine. And then I'm actually using a Clearfoot with a center, let me show you that too. I'm using the Clearfoot, which has the center red mark, and I like that because that's going to give me, it shows me right where my needle is going to strike the fabric. So it lets me see the very center of my foot. So I'm going to put that foot on. And then I'm going to take 2 of my strips, and I'm going to put one right side up. And I don't know if you can see it. It might be better from over here. Is this better? It's hard to see. Can you see if it,
It's hard to see because of the light.
is it reflective? There.
I think it's good.
Can you see? And then we're going to turn. I'm going to rotate 90 degrees. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that red line on the V right here. I'm going to put the red line. And then I'm going to put the other end down here. So it's hard to see if you,
Where's
is she aiming in the right
I'm
spot?
not right now.
Here, we need to see the picture. There's the picture. So I think we need to come over on this side. Give us one moment, please. We're readjusting. There we go.
Right there?
Yep.
All
Okay,
right.
so we're going to enter the cut right here, and we're going to exit right here. But this line, this center line on my angler, is what is showing me where to keep this notch. So I'm basically going to just follow it right up as I'm sewing until I get right under the needle. So that's a really good way to do. Let me pull this foot down.
I won't show you her feet.
All right, I'm going to put my
Sounds
foot
good.
down, and then we're going to just stitch. Oh, you know what? Okay, so one thing you're not supposed to do when you're stitching is hit your knee lift, and I'm not sitting quite in the front of my machine, so I hit my knee lift when I started to sew. I don't think it's going to, yeah, I think it will. Maybe. Okay, I've now jammed my machine. Does that ever happen to you at your house? Remember what we talked about of how to unjam your machine? Let me pull this up.
Am I upside down?
There we go.
Nope, you're good.
We're just gonna do a sample. So,
Yeah. It always happens when you're live, right?
of course.
I still have a thread caught in my. Ay, ay, ay. So what did I tell you about machine maintenance? I say whenever you have a jam, you unthread the top and the bobbin. Whoop.
Here, let's just do it.
I got it. There we go. Okay. And here
It's the culprit.
is the bad thread. There he is. We don't want those in our bobbin area.
Yeah, away with you.
Okay, then I can put this back in. And I can come back. Wow, this going live is harder than I thought. I didn't think this would be hard at all. Da-da-da-da. Okay, and we're back. Okay. So what I was showing, let me get rid of all my tails. I'll just do another end. Okay, right sides together. And then I'm going to
Is she
come.
upside down?
If she was. I didn't flip it.
It looks upside down.
There's a little lag.
Okay, all right, all right. We're coming around.
Coming around.
This is right side up, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Coming around.
Is that
And then
good?
we're going to go in. And we're going to come out the other side. Oh, that's so much better. All right. And we sewed. And so then we have, the
Beautiful.
next thing we're going to do is we're going to trim this. So Joyce was going to show us one other thing that you could do with the AccuQuilt so you don't have to do this angle. I'm trimming this down to my 1/4 inch. And then I'm clipping off the dog ears. These are very dull scissors. And then I would also press this open. So while Joyce is getting set up to do the cutting the ends off so you don't even have to use an angler, the AccuQuilt will do it for you perfectly. Okay?
Are we ready?
All right, we're ready for Joyce's.
Okay. So if you have an AccuQuilt cutter, let's say you have this go big, you actually, oh, I brought the wrong die. That's okay. You will get a flying geese die with your machine, and so any half square triangle will do. So this obviously isn't the flying geese die, but it is a half square triangle. Actually, I'll use a smaller one.
What if you could put it this way because of the light? There we go.
Okay, and so I have my strip, And the most important thing to remember when you have your strip is you want to make sure they're both going the same way. So like if it were still folded, I'd have one wrong side up, one right side up. I'm going to do these both right side up. That's all you need to really remember. And then on your die, I'm just going to put my my strip coming right next to here. I'm gonna lay it on here like this. Okay, now if I put that whole mat on top of this, it's going to just cut part of a half square triangle, and I don't want that. All I want is just that angle right here. So I'm only going to cover what I need to cut. So I'm going to cover that much, just like that, and then I'm going to send it through, just like this. Okay, and then what happens is now I have my mitered corners. And so, isn't that cool? So when you have all your strips and you're ready to sew them together, they just go like this. So you don't have to worry about making sure you hit intersections or whatever because it's already cut for you perfectly. Look at that. They just go together just like that. Sew it.
The dog ears are already
They're
clipped off,
gone. They're
which is
gone.
super,
So
super
that's my tip for the day, but back to Kathy.
All right. So the next thing I was going to do was show you that I would iron these. So our binding strips are always ironed in half. And today our focus is just to get the binding made. You're going to have to come back tomorrow to see us actually attach it. We don't want to stress you out and give you too much information all in one day. So when we go to press it, you can just bring your edges together.
Wrong sides together.
Wrong sides together. And then we're going to I just hold it with my iron and then walk my way down.
Did you want to show them this cool tool?
It's the wrong size for
No,
this
I
size
got a
strip.
number one. It's the right size.
Oh, Joyce, you're a miracle worker. Okay, so that's one way is you can just hold it as you go. The other way is to use the sashing tool, and it goes down inside and back up like this, and it slides. Then we're going to just pin it to our ironing table. Let's go all the way to the end. We're going to pin it to our ironing table. And then we're going to put,
The iron on this side. And
yeah,
push-
but I think we have
yeah,
it
you're
upside down.
supposed to go over. And
I did it upside down,
Yep.
didn't I? So let's just flip this over.
There you go.
Boop.
There you go.
There we go.
That was an easy fix.
All right. There we go.
All right.
Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to let this be what for our
Binding.
binding for us. And I'm going to just use this hand to hold it, but I'm going to let the iron just push this down its little path,
Isn't that cool?
and it will
Perfect.
fold it just in half for
Perfect.
us. So it's a lot faster than having to fold everything.
Or burning your fingers.
Yes,
right?
or burning your
Look
fingers.
how perfect that is.
It is, and then when you get to the seam, I was going to show you this as well, that we actually press this seam open before you get to the sasher. And you always want to make sure those are open.
Good thing you have long arms, Brett.
That's right. Then I'm
Ready
going to
for this
press
up?
again. Yeah, let's move it up.
Move it on up. Here we go. Look how perfect that is. That is
That
perfect.
is awesome. Awesome, man.
Wow.
And we're just going to keep coming.
There's a curve.
You're my pen. I like it.
Yes, there's a curve actually on this tool
Whoop.
that just goes right next to your iron. So your iron.
Oh, I got going too fast.
Uh-oh.
One moment, please. Back
But
it
your
up.
iron is actually pushing the tool along, and you're just providing a little tension on the other end just as it feeds along. So you're not burning your fingers, but you're getting a perfectly folded strip.
Very, very,
Wow, I'm so
very
impressed
nice.
with your pressing ability, Kathy.
Oh, wow. Check it out. All right.
Sweet, look at that.
Cancel it.
Look at that.
We're
That is
almost to the end.
It's more binding she's ever going to need on this little
I know.
quilt.
It's a little weedy thing.
Yeah.
Jamie Champagne asks, can you use this with the bias binder to make double bias binding?
Yes, you
Yes.
can. Yes, you
Yes.
can. And it'll also do a triple roll. It'll roll it to the center as well. So depending on how you start your strip, but you could also fold them this way with this, where it makes it for the middle, and then so you could use this for the mask. And we do have, and then it would come like this when you go to do the finish. So there's all differences
These are the
available.
strappers, but I don't know what that is.
Little teeny tiny ones. They come in all different sizes. The 2.5 inch. This is the 1.5 or the 1 1/4 inch is what I would use for binding normally, because I'd start with a 2 1/2 inch strip. This is a 1 inch sasher.
Here's the 1 1/4.
And then the 1 1/4 works with the 2 1/2 inch strips for regular binding. Yep, they're all different sizes. And then there was something else I was going to say about the.
You're about folding it in. You can do the double.
Yes, you can definitely do the double. Oh, so what I was going to say is that we have about 1,000 yards of elastic on order. A lot of people have been calling and asking about it. Now that wearing face masks is going to be the new norm for a while anyway, I know a lot of you want to make face masks. And so I thought one day this week when the elastic gets here, we would talk about actually making a face mask together. I thought that would be a good one. And Joyce got hers together.
All right, here you go.
She's done, and she's got adorable little bees.
Bees.
It's very, very cute.
Bees. We're buzzing.
Yes. Do you want to show them your
Oh,
Christmas
yes.
one too?
Okay, so if you didn't have time to do your face mask, but you do happen to have an eye mask. So here was an eye mask. It was in my nightstand. And so, look, you could even do your eye mask and use it as a face mask. Because I protect you and you protect me when we wear our masks, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Okay, so that was our tutorial for today, was getting the quilt squared up and the binding made. And then tomorrow we will actually put the on, learn about my and learn how to finish that last seam so that you get a perfect seam every time. We also decided that doing our Facebook Live at 1 o'clock is actually a little tough because we have such abbreviated store hours right now from 11 to 3, and we have a lot of phone calls and a lot of customers coming to pick some stuff up. So we are going to move our Facebook Live to 3 o'clock so that it's right as the store settles down. Then we can give you our undivided attention, and Katie can be back here, and Joyce can be here, and we can
love
be.
Katie's commentary too.
Yes, we need Katie's commentary because she definitely has she's fun to have her on as well. So tomorrow it's going to be at 3 o'clock, not 1 o'clock, and we'll see you there.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.